Good afternoon, everybody. As people join in, I am going to give people a few seconds here to get in. I am just make sure. Well, let's get started. For those of you that showed up on time, I want to thank you. Um, I assume everyone can hear me. I have had a headset issue today, so I want to make sure that people can actually hear what I'm doing. So if someone wants to throw in the Q&A box that yes, you can hear me, that'd be great. Good deal. Thank you, someone. As a reminder, the Q&A box is yours. If you want to ask questions as we go along, feel free to do so, and I'll try to answer them. I am going to get going today on Social Security, though, and we have a program that hopefully is about 30 to 40 minutes long, and so I will let you know as we get near the end. As a reminder, everything we talk about today is meant for education. So if you have any thing that's specific to your scenario, please reach out to either us or your financial advisor to talk about Social Security. I will tell you this, one thing that we've learned in working with Social Security is that when you call Social Security directly and ask for advice, they don't give it. They will tell you how to do something, but they don't actually advise you on what's the right way. So I'll give you that heads up if you ever want to just reach out to someone like us instead. As your speaker, which most of you who have been on this before, you know me, I am the president of the wealth management side of the house. We have many sides of the house, though. If you look at all the different services we offer, whether it's wealth management, M&A, trust and estate, CPA, we've got a lot of stuff. So if there's any of this stuff that sounds interesting to you, whether it's reaching out to them directly, going to our website, or reaching out to me and just asking me to hook you up with the right person, please feel free to do so. And with that, I'm going to get started with today's agenda. Today's agenda about Social Security is fairly easy, and yet this is a topic that kind of gets confusing for people. So we'll start with where things stand today in the Social Security side of life, as far as the funding of Social Security, what we see going on, if there are going to be any changes to Social Security. Then we're going to get into some of the issues around how to take Social Security and whether or not it makes sense to delay benefits. This is one of the biggest questions we get asked. And the second biggest question we get asked is benefits for spouses, mainly what happens when people either retire or if one of you passes away. So that section is geared a little bit more towards the married couple. If you are not married, maybe you'll learn something, but that's where that section is geared towards. So let me start with some easy things. We made some of these scenarios up, so some of this stuff is just BGM hypotheticals. But if you do want more information, you can also go to ssa.gov. I bring that up because it is a good website for more information. All right, let's start with where Social Security is at the moment. Basically, from a Social Security standpoint, everyone seems to think that Social Security is this black box, but it's actually something a little simpler than that. Most of the money for Social Security income that's paid out over the year comes from Social Security taxes on people still working. And so if you look at it, most of the time, that's what's happening. There is a small percent of the time, which you see in this little yellow box, where it's the actual interest on accumulated funds. that makes up a little bit. And then there's some taxes on the actual Social Security benefits themselves that make up a little bit of Social Security. But for the most part, Social Security is funded by the people that are still working, whether it be the employer or the employee side of life. And I'll get to that in a second. I bring it up because everyone seems to be talking about, well, when's Social Security going to go bankrupt? And the reality of that is it can go bankrupt to the extent that the fund itself could run out of money. But since so much of the income is actually provided by ongoing people working, it's not going to completely go bankrupt. Let's talk about that for a second. Social Security taxes basically make up what's happening in Social Security. If you're working, you have to pay a 6.2% Social Security tax, and then you pay another 1.45% for Medicare. If you are the employer side, you do the same thing. So really, if you think about it from the person who's a small business owner, they're paying both sides of this equation, which means they have to pay 15.3%. Now, that's on the first 176,000 in 2025. After 176,000, the 6.2% or 12.4% combined go away, but the Medicare does not. So keep that in mind. Medicare is charged on all your income unlimited. It's the Social Security part that we're talking about when we talk about this limited, the limit on 176, okay? If we look at it from today's finances, in 2024, which is the last numbers we have, at the end of 2023, there was 2.6 trillion in the fund. The fund had income of 1.2 trillion, but it spent 1.3 trillion. So there was a deficit, which means at the end of the year, there was actually 2.5 trillion. Now, if you think about that, the 2.5 that's left has to be invested somewhere. And as I point out at, as I point out at the bottom, the 2.5 is invested in government securities that do earn some sort of interest rate. This is going to be something I bring up because obviously there's questions about should it be invested different, but that's how it's currently done. If you look at the 2.5 trillion in 2024, just look out a few years from that. And the projected number in 2028 is 1.9. So you can see it's starting to kind of hit an inflection point where we're starting to see this precipitous drop. And if you look at this out here, somewhere around 2034, 2035, theoretically, Social Security runs out of money. Now, what that means really is that you run out of these surplus funds. So when you look at the amount of Social Security that's funded off of just the income tax side, you will still probably see somewhere around 75% of benefits payable. And I bring that up because everyone always says, well, I'll never get Social Security. The reality is you'll get Social Security. If for some strange reason the politicians decided to, I guess, be really dumb and not fix the problem, the answer is you'll still get probably 75% of the benefits just from ongoing funding from workers. It's this last 25% that we're talking about. And I don't really want to scare anyone here because I don't think it's actually going to necessarily come to fruition this way. For the most part, the people we're talking about are usually, older people who are heavy voters. And so I am sure Congress at some point here is going to fix the issue in some fashion simply because they got a lot of voters looking at them. Now, to that extent, there are a couple ways you could fix the problem. Some of the ones that I think are, there's one or two that I think are more probable. One of them I think is much more probable is we raise this limit. So right now you pay Social Security tax on the first 176,000 you earn, but you could easily raise that. You could go uncapped altogether and make anyone pay that extra 6.2%, plus the employer side of 6.2%, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of new revenue. The second thing you could do from a revenue standpoint is privatize Social Security. In essence, change that investment style so that there's a bit more growth in there as opposed to just, some sort of treasury bill option. Now, from a benefit side, you could do a couple of things. A, raise the normal retirement age. Right now, normal retirement age, as you'll see in an example coming up, is somewhere between 66 and 67. some of the discussion has been, do we change it to age 70 or something even past that? I could see something like that happening potentially, but it kind of makes sense to do it in conjunction with the second thing, which is how about we just lower benefits in some fashion for future retirees? Now, when I say that, I don't mean that they would necessarily lower it for everybody. What I think they could do is lower benefits or even take away benefits for people with a certain amount of income ratio. So why are people, earning three, four, 500,000 in retirement, also getting Social Security would be the question at hand. When Social Security was meant to be kind of the thing there for helping people not hit rock bottom. The obvious opposite to that is, yeah, but I paid in, so I'm owed it. But that's, I think, where you could see Congress fidget a little bit. If I were guessing on Congress, I would guess it would be more of these two scenarios and maybe this one up here that they start playing around with. I don't think they'll privatize it, but you never know. And as far as the cost of living, that's already kind of a hit or miss kind of thing. Like if interest rates keep where they're at, there's always going to be some inflation, but they can still kind of underprice that cost of living adjustment somewhat if they need to. But I think that's where we'll head. Now, looking at the calendar of when you were born will tell you when your full retirement age is. And as we move forward in our slides, you're going to need to know this. Full retirement age is that point, FRA we call it, is that point when you get your full benefits. If you retire before that, I'm sorry, if you claim Social Security before that, your benefits are decreased. And if you claim it after that, your benefits are increased. Typically, for every year you claim it earlier than full retirement age, you're going to see a reduction of about 6.5% to your benefits. So if you do the math backwards, take it at 62 instead of 66, and you're going to see, roughly a 25% decline in benefits. However, the opposite is true. If you take it after age, let's say in this case, 66 and 10 months, and you push it out to age 70, you get about 8% per year increase. So 8% from age 60, let's call it 67 to 70, is about a 24% increase. So you could see a fairly large increase by delaying. Now, I'm going to just touch upon a philosophical question, which is why delay? From a delay standpoint, people are always looking at it from the perspective of well, I want my money now. But the reason to delay is probably a couple things if you're going to. One is looking at it from the perspective of just needing the money is one issue. But if you've got other things going on, taking Social Security earlier can oftentimes create more taxable income that if you don't need it this minute, might mess up other strategies. So it's a question of, do you need to take it because it could mess things up? Secondly, it's a little bit of game of chicken if you think about it. If you're a married couple and one of you is really healthy, it really becomes a question of what's the overlap somewhere down the road where benefits paid versus benefits delayed and paid at a higher rate have a crossover point. And that crossover point is a function of health then, if the crossover point is age 82 and you can live past 82, maybe it made sense to delay it. But I just want to bring those topics up because I think some people just defer to, well, I want the money because I'm owed it, but it does sometimes change other things going on when we talk about ongoing planning strategy. Now, if you look at it from this perspective of what I just said, the current claiming age is 66 and 10 months for people born currently. And if you look at it from that perspective, this is the benefit. And depending on if you have a cost of living adjustment or not a cost of living adjustment, we run it both ways just to look at that. But if you look at it from that perspective, this is what full retirement benefit would be. But look it out at age 70, you'd get $1,000 more. And that would depend too. If you got a cost of living adjustment in there, maybe a little more yet. So I bring that up because that is a rather large sum of money difference if we delay just a little bit, if we don't need the money. To my point about break even age is going to be different between different things. So if you look at this, for age 62 versus waiting till full retirement age, the break even is age 78 roughly, meaning that if you live past 78, it made more sense to delay and take it at full retirement age than at 62. Sure, you got benefits earlier, but those reduced benefits for the rest of your life impact you. If you look at it from age 62 to age 70, not full retirement age, because that would have been 66 and 10 months, but age 70, now the break-even age is slightly longer. And if you look at it from full retirement age to age 70, the break-even age is just a touch longer. And so if you look at it from different angles, you start to figure out what's going on if you're a healthy versus not a healthy person. And what I would say is, for a lot of people that aren't healthy, this discussion about delay might be silly. If you've got health issues, it might make a lot of sense to just take your benefits and run. But those are the kinds of questions we want to ask. Now, spousal benefits are a little different, because the way the spousal benefits work is that a spouse can receive either 50% of their spouse's benefit or 100% of their own. Now, this comes into play mainly when you look at it from the perspective, I'll take an easy example. Someone who didn't work at all, someone stayed home with the kids, they're not going to have a large benefit. So then 50% of this working spouse's benefit probably makes more sense, right? But that's what we want to look at. Whose is higher? Because that's where we get into some of the other things going on. And I'll touch upon that in some case studies here. In general, though, I bring this up because in order to qualify for this 50% of someone's higher, the person that has the higher benefit has to have applied for benefits for you to get that. So keep that in mind. If they haven't, you're going to get your own until they apply, which is fine. You just might get a lower amount. So I bring that up because sometimes people get confused by this. They think they can just walk in and decide what they want to do, and that's not the way it is. It's decided for you by Social Security. It used to be that we could make that decision and choose which one we wanted to take and when we wanted to take it. That no longer is the case. All right. If you're divorced, I just bring this up because this is an issue. If you were married for 10 years or longer, you can claim Social Security on a former spouse's benefit. So if your benefit, going back to you getting yours or 50% of your spouse, if you had a spouse that had a high compensation and qualify for a lot higher Social Security, you could claim on theirs potentially. Now, if you do, they don't know that you did it. So don't worry about that. They're not notified. No one understands, and it doesn't reduce their benefit at all. And I say that because if the exact opposite's the case, someone claims on yours because your divorced spouse wants to claim on yours, it does not reduce your benefit at all. So that's not the issue. It's just a rule that Social Security allows. So I bring this up simply so you understand there are some options if you've been through divorce. And there are a bunch of other rules. I'm not going to get into all these details, but if you think this is an issue for you, feel free to reach out and we can always talk more about it. Here's where Social Security gets fun. It's when we start talking about survivor planning. And what you need to understand in the world of Social Security is that the word survivor is not the person that lives. It's actually the person that died. They call that the survivor benefit. I don't understand it. I just go along with the rules as they're written. So that's a key point I want to bring up. People get confused by this, and they get confused when they deal with Social Security on it. So I need you to understand that piece. The survivor benefit is a big deal because we want to know who's going to get what. If the survivor benefit, I'm going to call it the person that died because it's easier to think of it that way. If the person that died prior to age 60, at age 60, you can claim the survivor benefit. Now, when you do that, and you'll see this in point number 2, you're reducing your Social Security payment from them forever. Because like I said earlier, for every year you take less, you're reducing your benefit by roughly 6.5%. So you will reduce it permanently. Now, there is a way around some of this, and that's what we want to get into with some case studies. But I do bring it up because the typical temptation is, well, if my spouse passes away, I'll just start claiming Social Security at 60. I will say this, by the way, the opposite is also true. And I have a case study on this. But oftentimes people don't know they can claim at age 60. And so they don't when maybe they should have. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. So let's run through a couple of case studies. I'm going to approach this from different angles. So let me talk about it from a base case scenario first. If we have two people, in this case, Andy is 60.5, 60 and a half years old, and Alice is 60. If Andy's full retirement age, he gets 2,400 and Alice gets 850. Andy dies. So now Alice has a decision to make. If she immediately claims Andy's survivor benefit at age 60, because he was over age 60, she's going to get a reduced benefit. She doesn't get the 2,400, she gets 1,700. So that's what she'll get the rest of her life, plus cost of living adjustments. If you look at it from a total value standpoint, let's pretend she lived to age 100. Her benefit from age 60 to age 100 would total 1.25 million. So it sounds like a lot of money. But let's look at it from a different perspective. What if at Andy's death, Alice, instead of filing for Andy's benefit, files for her own benefit? Now she's older. She'd have to wait till 62 to do this. But because she's taking it at 62 and not at 66.10, she would have to take a reduced amount from 850, and that reduced amount is 663 a month. At age 62, she does that. She takes a little less. However, because she didn't claim on Andy's survivor benefit, that keeps growing. So Alice waits until a later age when she turns 66, and now she claims his benefits. And because she waited until her age 66, she gets this plus more, which totaled the 2672 a month. So if you look at the difference in that strategy, instead of 1.25 million, Alice gets 1.58 million, again, assuming till she lives till age 100. She got some supplemental income in the middle, but she got a much bigger bang for her buck on the back end of that. If you look at the difference, the interesting thing here is that break-even point is right around age 75. That's where the two scenarios kind of are close. And then once you get past that, the more optimal scenario that I mentioned, which is she takes her benefit before claiming on his later, that starts to really win out. So it's not just what if she doesn't live to 100? Well, she could easily die at age 80, but at age 80, she's still 75,000 ahead, pretty almost, right? So I bring it up because there are some optimal scenarios that are very, very specific. But that's why we look at each situation separate. Let's look at it from a different angle. What happens when the survivor benefit, now the person that died, is lower than the person that's still living? So their benefit's lower, okay? In this scenario, the higher earning widow that is still alive claims their survivor benefit right at age 60 and lets their own benefit grow until 70 because their benefit's higher. So we want it to grow as much as possible. Then at age 70, they claim. Now, let me just show you how this looks. And they bring it up because this is not mentioned. If you call Social Security, they may not tell you about this. So in this scenario, we basically look at it from the perspective that we have Bob. Whoops, I went back. Bob had the higher amount. and he dies. However, it's not the higher amount because here it may look like he's got more than Betty. The issue is if she starts claiming on it right away, she actually gets less than her amount because she's only going to get 1788 since she's taking it at 60 instead of waiting till Bob's age 66. She takes less. She goes on till age 100. It's $1,300,000. The more optimal scenario, though, is at his death. Betty actually files because she's got a higher amount than 1788. She actually does take it at age 60. And then in this scenario, she would push until age 70 to start taking her own. And now she takes this till 70. And at 70, she jumps up to 3,300, which is 1.8 million. And if you look at the math, 1.8 at age 100 is a $500,000 higher than the base case scenario. But even if you go way back here, it's really interesting to me that in this scenario, the optimal scenario beats the base case already at age 70. And that's a pretty big shift that early in life, because more likely than not, particularly if the woman lives, if the second person to die is the woman, she's going to live a long life, and age 70 is a pretty easy number probably to hit. So I bring that up because oftentimes we're looking at who the specific person that passed, what their benefit would have been, whether it's higher or lower, and then comparing it to the second person that's still alive. We have software that does this. So when we do it, we can dial right in on exactly what works. So I bring that up just in case down the road people want to talk to us more about what it looks like on our end. I'm getting near the end because I promised I'd only make this 30 to 40 minutes. So if you do have questions, now's a good time. There is a change in the law this year. I wanted to bring this up. The law changed. We basically had a scenario going into the year where there was Social Security shifts for people that didn't do certain things. And so what I have here is these changes to what we call the windfall elimination or the government pension offset. These changes have been repealed. So I bring it up because there are scenarios with mostly civil servants that are affected where they may have other pensions that would offset how much they get from Social Security. And some of this has been repealed. I'll also bring up that so far, the benefits from a Social Security perspective are still being updated. Like, I don't think anyone knows about this yet. So this is something that if you are in these scenarios, it might make sense to actually call Social Security and ask the question, because I haven't seen anything yet published that they're ready to go on it. To be honest, this doesn't affect a lot of people, but I just bring it up. My final slide is the free value slide. If you have a child under the age of 18 and you are of Social Security age, and this is where actually it sometimes makes sense at age 62 for people to file early. If you file early, whatever, as long as you can file, and you have a child under the age of 18, your child can also receive benefits until they complete high school. I bring it up because I have seen scenarios where families maybe adopted a child later in life, or maybe they just had kids late, may accidentally qualify, whether it's one spouse or both spouses accidentally qualify for this. And the family maximum, by the way, is 180% payout of your full retirement age benefit. I bring that up because I actually ran into a scenario where we've seen people with many children. Like, let's pretend you had triplets. It could trigger that rule because you have too many kids claiming Social Security benefits. But anyways, I bring it up because it is something out there, and I've seen it used a couple times in my career. You don't see it often, but it is available if you need it. And what I always do is when people can claim early and maybe get this for their kids, I look at it as a great way to fund college education, because that's basically what you're doing, is getting some money for that. So with that, I want to thank everyone for attending. Still not seeing a ton of questions yet, so that's great. Either I did a really good job or everyone's stumped, one of the two. I do have a podcast coming soon. It should be out fairly soon, actually, before the end of the year. So as we are getting that recorded, I hope you can pay attention, and you'll see that coming. I'm going to skip December for Hot Topics. December's a busy month for everyone with holidays, and so I'm just going to skip December. And in January, we'll come back. We're working on our annual economic update right now, so I'll be ready to go with that to talk more about our annual update, as well as any changes we're making to our models and what we see with the market. So with that, I want to thank everyone who attended. I don't see any questions, so have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.